Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a Q4 review, which is crazy. We're already in that part of the homeschool year, but that's what we're doing today. So if you enjoy this type of content, other homeschool and lifestyle content, please remember to subscribe and let's get into it. All right, our Q4 is ending earlier than probably most people's. We usually end school as we start to go into May, because if we have family trips planned, that's when we try to plan them. My husband's a professor, so all of his stuff is finishing up right now. Kids just had finals, graduation is happening, and all that kind of stuff. And so after he's done with that, he doesn't really have all those obligations anymore for several months. And so we're able to plan some sort of trip. This May, me and my husband are actually going on our anniversary trip. So we're leaving the kids behind and we're going to Cabo. And it's our first trip in like 6 years, just the two of us. So I'm very excited about that. It's very stressful, like getting like all the stuff before, getting everything ready for grandparents to watch the kids and making sure they have all the things they need here and stuff like that. But then it'll be really nice once we're there. So if you have things you like to do in Cabo, let me know down in the comments. We've never been before. And so I'm very excited about that. So that's why we usually just kind of end earlier and then we start a little bit sooner. This year, we'll do even more summer school than we normally do because of going to Africa and trying to get some stuff done here that would be really difficult to do there. So that's kind of why you're seeing this video maybe earlier than other people, is that's how we choose to do our school year, and it works well with my husband's schedule and us being able to go on a family vacation or a couple's vacation before all the rest of school gets out, you know, all the public school gets out. So a few things I just wanted to mention to start off this video with Q4 is because as I go through things, I feel like we got through a lot, but there's also a lot we didn't cover that maybe I wanted to. We had the flu for like a week. Well, the week before that, one of my kids had the flu. She had fevers and congestion. Then the next week, 3 of my kids on the same day woke up with fevers. And then I woke up a few days later with fever and congestion. And that was my husband's spring break. We were supposed to go down to southern Utah that week. And so that ended up happening the next week. Luckily, we were able to just push it to the next week and still go on that trip. So that was 2 weeks that we weren't going to do anything really for spring break. I had already written it out of my homeschool planner, so I didn't have anything planned. But that was a week that got, you know, it became 2 weeks instead of just one. And so we were trying to make up some of that kind of stuff. And then all the Africa craziness, you know, we've been waiting for a long time to just figure out what we were gonna do in the fall and waiting to hear back from government funding and all the things. And so when the private funding, when we heard back that we could do that, it was just like boom, boom, boom. It happened very suddenly. There was all these things going on. And so that also just took a lot of mental power. It was very stressful to do all the things we need to do at that time. And then we've also had a good amount of family emergencies, also not in our immediate family, but both of our dads have had some ER visits this last 6 weeks, I guess. We had a cousin pass away. And so there's just been a lot of things going on that has made it a little bit crazy of a fourth quarter that, you know, things you can't necessarily plan for. But I'm gonna go through just some of the things that we did accomplish or kind of where we are curriculum-wise. I'll do a more comprehensive video on our whole school year, and that will come out maybe in May, maybe towards the end, because all my curriculum videos are gonna start rolling out too, in right after this one. And so we'll kind of see where the end of school year video shows up, but it will be coming out as well, just to kind of give a complete overhaul of the whole year, my final thoughts on everything, so you can look forward to that. But I'm just gonna go through and kind of review just this last quarter and what that looked like. Okay, I'm gonna start out with math, and we are just finishing school this week. So I'm filming this on Monday, and this is our last week of school. And most of the stuff has already been done today. My kids will still be working on individual subjects throughout the week. We have a few group work things, but it's very chill. There's not too many things going on. But something that did happen, I mentioned in the Q3 that my daughter was gonna move on from Math 6 to Math 7. And so she's done that, and she has been loving this. you know, compared to Math 6, I still love Math 6. And I've mentioned this in other videos as well, that Math 7 just has slightly shorter, they're like perfect length lessons, really. Because some of the problems in Math 6 would just get to be too much. Not on all the lessons, you know, some things just take longer. And so if you don't downsize the amount of problems on those things that take longer, it just makes it be so enormous. And so with some of my kids, that's fine, and they still work through it. And with other of my kids, this particular child, it becomes overwhelming, and then like her brain just can't function, right? A lot of us, like, we shut down when it becomes too much. And so moving into this, I think, has kind of rejuvenated her a little bit. The lessons are a little shorter. She does really well on them. Obviously, there's still things she struggles with and has to go back and fix, but it's not as overwhelming as Math 6 was for her, and she's able to get it done. Like Math 6, it was taking her into the afternoon, sometimes after 2 o'clock, and all that kind of stuff. I'd have to just tell her to stop and save some for the next day. And so if you're having a child that has struggles like that, I'd recommend splitting up lessons. And again, you don't have to split up all the lessons, because some of them are quick and the concepts are quick, and other ones they're not. So if they seem like they're struggling, or you just want to set a timer and say, like, generally you're done by this amount of time, then that might be a good idea. Because I feel like Math 7 just naturally makes it shorter and easier that way. And then my second grader, she'll be going into 3rd grade, is just started Math 4. Like, she's like the 3rd lesson, I think, 3 or 4 lessons in, and she's really enjoying this. It's nice too, because there's video lessons now, and she is getting better with reading, but it's still a little bit of a struggle. And so all of her other lessons, we were having to read it all to her, and obviously we'd still be willing to do that, but she can watch the video lesson and understand a lot. There are some things that she misses in a few of the problems, or skips because she doesn't know what it says or what it wants her to do. And so then we have to go back and take care of that. But so far she's doing really good with it, and she was so excited. Like so excited to start Math 4. And so math is going really well. And then I don't really have anything new to say about language arts, so I'm just gonna add it on to math. I feel like we're just chugging along with language arts. I have, I think, one child that's about ready to be done with his language arts, and the others are maybe halfway or just over halfway. And so hopefully by the end of summer or into the fall, before we go to Africa, they'll be done with what they're currently working on, and we can just take the next level with us instead of having to worry about like 2 levels, because we're not gonna have room for that kind of stuff. So we're gonna make sure that we're only taking 1 level of all the curriculum, and that they can just work on that when we're there. And then we finished mammals. We had just started this at the end of quarter 3, and we all really enjoyed this. It's a little different. I wouldn't say there's experiments. There might be little activities that can help you understand, or so my kids, one that they enjoyed was with opposable thumbs, when we were talking about monkeys or apes or different things. And so they had to put like a sock on. I think it would have helped if it was a tighter sock. I think the socks were too loose for them. But then they had to try to do activities like write their name or pick something up that was really small. And it showed them, you know, when you don't have your thumb, it becomes really hard, which I know I've had hand surgery, and not having your thumb, even when it's like it was on my non-dominant hand, it was this hand. But it's so hard. Like, you can't even imagine the things that are hard to do when you don't have a thumb, like until you don't have use of your thumb. And so anyways, they really enjoyed that. So there's activities like that, or this book feels heftier, like it's longer, but I think the amount of lessons is 14. Like, it's fairly similar to most of the other sciences, the science units from The Good and the Beautiful. But it has a lot more like printable activities, or you can cut these out. I don't like to cut them out of the book since I don't want to lose them. So a lot of times I'll just make a copy of them on our printer and then cut them out so my kids can still do the activity, but I'm not losing it from the book if we use this book again in the future, or someone else wants to if we give it away. So anyways, there's lots of activities in here with like different pictures. You're matching animals to different activities. But something else that's cool about this one that we haven't had in any of the other types of units was this map. Let me see, this is my oldest son's book, but it gave you stickers at the front of this book. This is the student journal. And then as you would go through each unit and talk about a different type of animal, a different mammal, or different species or whatever, you know, as you went through the different things, it would tell you like, oh, these ones live in this area. And so then they could take the sticker and put it on the map where it is, you know, and they just kept saying there's so many in Africa, which was hilarious because then we're going to Africa, which we did not know at the time that they were doing all this. Most of them though are further down in Africa, right? We're gonna be up here. Not as many right there, but you know, except a camel maybe, but anyways, and so they enjoyed, I liked having this extra element. You know, when there wasn't as many like experiment type things to do with mammals, they created another activity, which I love about The Good and the Beautiful. They just have really good ideas. And then also I had gotten this mammals book for K through 2. They had just released these for some of their science units. And so my second grader, I was like, she is in second grade, right? Would go through and do this. And it's a little bit easier because it's more visual and not as much reading and stuff. So if you have a child that either is still struggling with reading or fits in this grouping of years or whatever, this might be a better option because it still has it all separated by the lessons. So like this says lesson 2 at the top. So when we're on lesson 2, they can still be doing something that relates to what we're doing, but she could just work on it quietly while we did the other things. So that was really nice. And then we also did weather. So weather and water. And we overlapped a little bit. That was always the plan, but then we had to overlap a little bit more because of us being sick, you know, so having 2 weeks gone instead of just 1, we had to adapt a little bit and ended up doing a lot of science. But it was fine because we finished our geography, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we finished that up several weeks ago. So we were able to just substitute in science to those spots. And so the weather one was a lot of fun. A lot of it is like looking outside, checking the weather, but there are different activities. There was this one with like surface tension. You know, you're putting the water on top of a penny in this different ways. You have a wet penny versus a dry penny and stuff in it. All is talking about water and the weather in our world. There was one where they make, what is this even called? It's for like the cardinal directions, one of those like wind chime things, but it has the cardinal directions on it. So you make it with a paper plate and they set them outside to see if the wind was blowing and stuff like that. So there's tons of different activities in here. This one was kind of a mix of activities, and some of the experiments we did, some of them we either didn't do or we just kind of adapted. One of them, we didn't have all the things to do it correctly. And so some of the experiments they show, they have videos for them on the Good and Beautiful's website. And so that was the first time we actually watched one of the experiment videos instead of doing it. And I felt like that was good as well. Like I like them being able to do the hands-on thing, but if you don't always have all the materials or don't want to get them, or they could be pricier or, you know, a hassle, some of them might be kind of weird to get. Most of the time they're not, but sometimes trying to get certain things might be a little bit hard. Then you could just watch the videos that are available for some of the experiments. And then again, they have their workbooks. They have 3 through 6, 7 through 8. I really enjoy these. And then my daughter also did this one, the weather and water one. So these were all great. The science units from the Good and the Beautiful, I think, you know, I've really enjoyed all of them. And they find good activities to incorporate with all of them, which I think is really impressive considering the topics are very, very different, you know. And so being able to make it fun and enjoyable no matter what it is, I think is something that the Good and the Beautiful is really good at. And then for history, we focused on the San Francisco earthquake. We focused on it a little bit more at the beginning of the quarter than we did at the end because I really just wanted to get through Refugee, which is our read aloud we've been working on for several quarters, because it's a little bit longer of a book. And so I can't remember where I put the earthquake books. We didn't actually get to read this one. My kids really liked the I Survived ones. So we might still try to read this one throughout the summer, because I have a few other ones, like I had gotten some for Hurricane Katrina and things like that. So we might still try to read some of these throughout the summer. But the ones that I did read are a little bit more factual. This is more historical fiction, like simplified historical fiction. And I just cleaned my closet. So you probably saw that video. If you haven't, you can go check it out. And so I just like refreshed the whole homeschool room and moved those books. And I'm like, where in the heck? That's what happens sometimes. I thought I put everything so I'd know where it was to film this, and then I don't know where they are. I looked a few places that seem obvious, but I don't know. So anyways, I have the other books that we read, and I'll link them down below because they're all from Amazon. But the I Survived ones are really, really fun. I just usually like to start with something that gives more of the facts of the event, and then we read a story about it to kind of incorporate those facts. So we did that, and then also I set this game out. Since our week is very calm with schoolwork and group work, I will probably play some more games. So this is one that Jessica from the Waldock Way had recommended on this mini unit for the San Francisco earthquake. And so we haven't played it yet. So I set it out to hopefully play it tomorrow. I don't even know what it's supposed to be like. Maybe like Ticket to Ride. It kind of looks like that. I'm not really sure. So anyways, we're gonna try that one out and see. But then we finished Refugee today. This is another historical fiction book. And so that's how I was trying to incorporate history, was more just reading of historical fiction, or, you know, doing something like this where it's a little bit factual with some different factual books and then going into something historical fiction. And I could hardly make it through the last 2 pages of this book. I was just crying. I'm not a big crier a lot of the time. I do get emotional, but I'm not necessarily a crier. So my kids were all like, what is happening? But this includes 3 different stories of refugees in 3 different time periods and stuff in 3 different parts of the world, and kind of goes through their different stories and talks about them. So at the end, you know, it's tying up everything, and I'm just like bawling and stuff. So that was fun. I was like trying to read. I almost had to hand it off to like one of my kids to read it, because I was like, I'm not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it through. But I really enjoyed this, and I feel like it was, my kids followed it fairly well. Sometimes it's hard when books go through so many different storylines. But I also like how it's just little snippets to each storyline, like very, very short. Some books will talk about something for a long time and then jump to the next storyline. So that made it a little easier, I think, to remember and to keep track of them. But I really liked this book. I have a few more by this author, Alan Gratz. And so maybe we'll try to read some of those as well. But that's what we did for history this quarter. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is geography. So I have talked about Knotgrass's geography several times, and it's been 2 years. It's taken us 2 years to go through this curriculum. I feel like any US geography curriculum, even world geography, it's so hard to get through it all in 1 year, because there's just so much information, right? Unless you simplify it a lot and just pick, like, this is all we're going to talk about this year. But trying to get through so many states, or if you did so many countries, you know, if you're doing world geography, it's just very tricky. And so I feel like it kind of burnt us out by the end. I feel like the curriculum is good. I have yet to find a geography curriculum that I just absolutely love. You know, like science, I love the Good and the Beautiful science units. I wish there was geography like that because it's simplified enough. You know, it's complex enough, but it's simplified enough. It's like just this perfect middle ground where I feel like it's really hard to find curriculum with geography and history that are like that. And so this one was good. I liked the workbooks that came with it, even though we didn't always use them. We were better at the beginning than we were at the end. I don't even know whose book I grabbed. Probably, well, I'm like, they hardly did anything later on. It might be my daughter's, I'm not sure. So I liked, because it had something to learn about, I don't know if you'd even call it geography. It's like the tide, right? Is that part of geography? I guess, I don't know. And so it gives you basically a vocab word in relation to what you were talking about. And then it has some outlines on this picture right here. It's kind of hard to tell, but it starts with a few little outlines and then you finish the picture. And then over here, it has some things about the state and then tells you color this part, this color or whatever, or look at the bird, it's this color. And so I really love how the workbook is outlined and stuff like that. Even if you wanted to just go through and use the workbook, I feel like that would be really good. And then there's also lesson like review questions and stuff like that. So my kids have filled most of these in. So at the end of each section, we just go through and there's 5 review questions about each state. And there's also regional review questions. And then this is the answer key that I have. And there are books that go with this. And so it has a literature guide at the back. We read maybe half the books. And then once we started again, I don't know if it was in January, I think we finished a book last fall. And then I just was like, I don't want to read these books. Some of them are okay. Some of them are just a little bit dated, I guess. And so I just didn't want to read them, and we were reading so many other things, and I was trying to incorporate more historical fiction, so we just didn't read them. But overall, I feel like the curriculum is good. It's just, again, it's you either go all in with it and do so much with it, or it's just kind of minimal. You read about a state and that's all you get, you know, because that's all you have time to do. And then you just move on to the next state. And so I guess you gotta, how do you do geography? Because I feel like I want to just do more in-depth studies, but then it would take years to go through all the states if we spent like a month, right? Per state or per country or something like that. But in order to really understand it and to do crafts or like talk about the food or things like that, I feel like you need more time. So that's kind of my thing with that. Overall, it's a good curriculum if you're looking for a geography curriculum. I enjoyed it. It does take a long time, but I still feel like it was good. The workbook's really good and very helpful. All right, so that is our Q4 review. Again, it's crazy that we're at this point of the year that we are finishing school. I can't even believe it. I don't even know what happened to this year. It kind of just feels like it just disappeared so fast. But let me know down in the comments how your school year is going. When do you normally finish? Is it closer to now? Do you wait into the summer? Do you continue to school through the summer and just take breaks all year round, you know, bigger chunks or whatever? Let us know, because I'm sure it'd be helpful for other people just to kind of see how everybody homeschools. And remember to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.